to loosely loop back to the European Union issue.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, so what the article states is they're talking about now the Russian politicians are condemning the idea. Well, who didn't see that coming? Um, and then they go on about this, and it's just like, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on where they're just sort of going, well, who gets to really decide what happens with this army? And which annoys me because the answer is clearly they decide it in Brussels where the EU meets. But one of the main issues being discussed is also the idea of sovereignty, right? Because a European army, well, an army commanded by the European Union, will never work until things get to a point where they can say, I'm a citizen of Europe and then a citizen of the UK or a citizen of Germany or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to find it very difficult to get, say, the Germans to send troops to a country that clearly brought a war upon itself. Or things like this, right? But they're expecting them to do it, and I can't see it working. I really can't. But then again, the issue people have with joining NATO is that NATO is designed to be a defensive organization, right? Okay, but somehow the powers and agreements of NATO get manipulated in such a way that make it an offensive force on occasion. And the problem is if you're a small country like Finland, right? You say, okay, you know what? I'm going to join NATO because it's the best way for us to, to protect ourselves. So we don't necessarily have the resources or the infrastructure to do so. But all decisions in NATO, in the what they call, I forget it's collaborative or integrated command structure, either way. Yeah. The big players get to decide what happens and what the requirements are to be in NATO. And so if you're a small country and you don't necessarily agree with everything NATO does, but you need the protection of the NATO forces, it's a very difficult call for you. People say, well, the UN has their international army they can deploy to take care of these things. Okay, the Ukraine. The UN cannot send forces to intervene in Ukraine because the Russians sit on the Security Council and they just veto every single time something gets brought up in this matter. And there's no mechanism within the rules of the UN to deal with a situation where someone clearly has an interest in a matter that's being voted upon, which I find incredibly irritating.
Are you trying to say in a fictional universe like House of Cards, where they came up with a solution to go around that?
I
That's not how real life works?
I actually haven't seen House of Cards.
You should probably get on that because they actually tackle a very similar topic to what's going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, really? I'll have to look into that.
Interesting. You probably should, but again, it is fiction. They are making things up in order to make the plot continue forward, where they'd normally be complete railroaded there.
Yeah, but it's like if, say you and I are at some sort of a meeting of, whatever committee, right? If a matter comes up that one of us, we can't be impartial about, then what you should do is you recuse yourself because you don't have the ability to just weigh the options, or you're involved in the situation, so it makes it unfair for you to vote on it. You see this happen at city council meetings and things where, say, the allocation of a plot of land is being debated, right?
You don't see that?
Where? Where, Al? Where don't you see it? I mean, it's not like we've been discussing something where we've decided, hey, why don't they do it like this?
Well, you know what? I really can't think of a time where when we were at university that any committee actually had someone recuse themselves when they had a conflict. In fact, I'm pretty sure I remember those people directly
Well, yeah, but that's how residence politics tend to work.
Well aware of that. I merely wanted to make the point that clearly it's not just the Russians that don't want to recuse themselves when it comes to something that they're involved with.
Well, of course not. And if there's no mechanism that mandates it, or even if there is, and no one is going to bring it up, then that brings up the question of, are the Russians actually doing something wrong if no one challenges it?
They're not wrong to try.
Exactly.
Everyone else is wrong for not called it.
Yeah, and that's the problem exactly. And until someone has the testicular fortitude to do so,
I was going to go with cojones. I prefer that term. Entertaining.
it's fair enough, and is technically a medical term.
It also doesn't have three consecutive vowels, unlike the EUA.
Ah.
Sometimes I like to be circular in conversations. I like to go back.
Well, if we didn't go back to things, Al, these would go on for about, 9 days. We both collapse of dehydration. And would never have actually talked about the original topic without,
The other thing is, if I have to go to work sometime in there, you're already at the school.
Yeah, this is true.
So, right, if you can stay connected, you could continue this and just have a class there and just point at them mindlessly. Apparently that's how I picture you when you're also having a conversation with me. I picture you sitting down and just pointing around the room.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing.
Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 7 whiteboards. So really, it could just, set stuff up on each one and be like, okay, 10 minutes have gone by. Look read that one now. That's what I was going to tell you about this next topic.
Well, if you had them work on their English with each other, you may actually find that it's improving.
Yeah, but the problem,
You may be bumping them up and having them work on their, linguistic and grammar skills.
The-
As if grammar skills aren't important.
the problem that we try to do that sometimes. But the problem you run into is a lot of them have a common language that isn't English. Let's say it would be Chinese or Korean or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But when you group the kids together who, one's first language is Arabic, one is Lithuanian, one's Portuguese.
Sounds like you need to make better groups.
But we only have 3 kids that works with. But when we group those together, it's awesome. Because they have to speak English
You clearly have to separate them
by language.
gender, race, and home culture. You clearly have to segregate them based on those things. I mean, come on, you gotta treat them like real life would.
How,
Why aren't you scrubbing the floors?
oh, that's terrible.
Hey, I can
This is true. Okay, so back slightly onto the topic here, Al.
I feel like this topic's dying because I feel like we've spent more time talking about Kansas than on it.
Oh yeah, but it's just a catalyst. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but I just feel like us talking about the EU and having an army is really going nowhere. Because I'm pretty sure both of us think that it's completely stupid and we need to try, because there'd be no way they'd be able to possibly win.
I think everyone thinks it's really stupid and there's no reason they should try, except for those who are in the European Parliament, who are not elected anyway. So I don't understand why they think they get to make decisions that affect people. And
At the end of the day, the countries involved have to do it.
effective. Well, the thing is, there's a mechanism, right? So that everything has to be consented to by the head of state for each country involved before it can be voted on in Brussels. But there's also a mechanism to make that not happen, to make it so it's only voted upon at the European Parliament.
That might literally be the stupidest thing I've heard all day.
Yeah, and you talk to James.
I know. Anywho, at the end of the day, the only way they could possibly have a collective union is if they were actually one collective body.
Oh, exactly. They'd have to.
And not just an
No, exactly. It's incredibly problematic unless you're going to get to the point where you create the country of Europe.
Exactly.
Although then again, most Americans think it's a country anyway.
Exactly. That would really just be helping the American education system.
I know. So,
If they took all the money from to feed their army.
yeah, it's two birds with one stone.
See, helping the U.S. education system, one country at a time.
Yeah, and that's or multiple countries, one continent at a time, as it were.
No, it ends in one country.
Oh, fair enough. All right, I think that's a good place to conclude this this conversation.
I agree.
All right. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.